Hello out there. Welcome to this beginner's guide to scale modeling. The idea behind this video is to introduce beginners to basic techniques and tools of scale modeling. This video is meant to serve as a starting point from where you can build on your skills and your supplies. There is a vast amount of information out there about scale modeling, and as a beginner, it can overwhelm you. I can honestly say that when I started out, I was utterly confused about all the products, supplies, tools, and so forth. I felt like I needed everything before I could start a build. Well, that's not true. And in this video, I will show you all it takes to build your first kit without spending hundreds of dollars. I will also introduce you to some products and supplies that I feel should be the first tools and supplies you buy as a beginner. Also, I have tried to use generic hobby products that are easily available rather than specialized modeling products, which are often hard to get and more expensive. So let's get cracking. The kit I have chosen to start with is this Revell 1/72 scale Spitfire Mk.V. This is a fairly easy kit to build, plus it comes with its own paints and glue. These are perfectly good products to use for a first build, and I will be primarily using these. Okay, so let's see what's inside the kit. There are two plastic grey sprues. Yes, these plastic frames with parts in them are called sprues. And we have a clear sprue that has a canopy in it. There is also an instruction manual and a decal or a decal sheet. Is it decal or decal? The jury's still out on that one. I usually call them decals. Let's take a closer look at the parts. The first thing I look at are the panel lines. There are two kinds. Recessed, which means that they are cut into the plastic piece like narrow channels, and raised, which are raised panel lines. The kit itself is reasonably detailed for our purpose. Here is, however, a problem point. You see all this extra plastic on the propeller? This extra plastic is a result of faulty molding, and it's called flash. Flash has to be removed before a part can be used, and this is not something modelers are particularly fond of. There is some more flash on the wings as well, and some other parts. Now a look at the clear sprue with the canopy. It's fairly simple, which is fine considering this is a basic starter kit. And this is the decal sheet. When decals are discussed, you will often hear the name cartograph. Cartograph decals are considered to be among the best. However, these Revell decals are also good. One more thing, the big roundels and other identification marks are usually referred to as decals. The smaller, tiny ones are called stencils. The instruction manual is fairly straightforward. As you graduate to bigger and more expensive kits, you will find superior instruction manuals. Many are colored and very well detailed. This one, not so much. The build itself is fairly standard. Start with the cockpit, join the fuselage halves, and then wings. There are two color schemes. As a first kit, we will stick to these. But you will often see more experienced modelers use historical references for their schemes, and often they will even modify the entire kit to make a particular type of aircraft. But we will stick to these for now. We also get this Revell contactor glue with the kit. We will primarily be using this only. However, I will introduce you to this Tamiya extra thin cement. Tamiya is a well-known kit and accessory manufacturer out of Japan, and their extra thin cement is pretty much the standard now. I will introduce you to extra thin cement and show you how it works and why it's preferred by modelers. Also, we have these three Revell paints we will be using. We also get this brush, but we will really not be using it to paint. Before we get on with the build, let me show you some basic tools that you will want to get. This is a hobby knife. I got this knife from my local craft shop. It's not very expensive. It's a versatile tool and you must get yourself one. These knives come with an array of blades, but right now a blade like this one, which I believe is the number 11, is good enough for our needs. Next, I have a pair of tweezers. I got these from my local beauty shop. I got the expensive ones as I needed something that is aligned properly and has a precision pinch. Tweezers come in handy when handling fiddly little parts and also while using masking tape. Next, we have our side cutters. This one is a specialized cutter meant specifically for hobbyists. But before these, I was using this side cutter, which I got from a hardware store. They work fairly well, but needless to say, the specialized side cutters are better for the task at hand. Right then, on with the build. I start off by cutting the first few pieces of the sprue. In this case, the cockpit parts. I make sure that I cut a little distance away from the actual piece itself. Even a sharp pair of sprue cutters, like these ones, tend to pinch the plastic. And just to keep on the safer side of things, we would rather that the pinch happens away from the actual piece. This extra plastic that you see, I will later remove with my hobby knife. But first, let's get all the pieces. Now to clean the parts up, I use my hobby knife to cut as close to the piece as possible. Now, that looks like a nice clean cut. We do all the other sides. But even after this close cut, there is often still a small plastic nub left on the piece. Once again, I use the hobby knife to clean this up. Time to glue some of the cockpit parts in place. Before we do any gluing, we will fit the two parts together to examine how well they fit. This is known as dry fitting. This glue comes with its own dispenser tube, but I rarely use it directly on the piece. A more prudent way of using the glue is to first put a dab on a container. And then use a toothpick to apply this glue onto the piece. This is a much safer and cleaner way of applying glue. Firstly, it prevents any accidental squirting of excessive glue onto the piece. And also, you are able to apply the optimal amount of glue. Not too much, not too little. The two parts I am gluing are the cockpit floor and seat. These go inside the fuselage. Here, I am dry fitting the two parts inside the fuselage to ensure that the angle between the floor and the seat is correct. I do this while the parts are still half glued in place. That way, I can make any corrections to the angle if required. Now to cleaning the fuselage halves. Once again, I use my hobby knife to cut off all extra plastic. There is a problem with these halves. They have tiny amounts of flash running along the seams. My hobby knife is not an ideal tool to clean this up with. For this task, I will use these: a sanding stick and a polishing stick. Both of these I got from a shop selling manicuring supplies. You know, a nail salon. The orange one is the sanding stick and the grey one is a soft polishing stick. I first use the sanding stick to sand along the seams, getting rid of any flash that is present. This sanding leaves tiny scratch marks. These I remove by polishing the piece. A good polish restores the piece to almost factory fresh. When it comes to painting tiny parts, almost all modelers rely on this product. It's blue tack, or in this case, uhu tack. It's the same product. A mix between putty and chewing gum that gets stickier when I need it. I use a toothpick to make a small blue tack stand. These are then pinned onto a standard cleaning sponge. And there you go, a customized holder for tiny parts that makes painting them easier. Well, I guess that's all for this part. In the next part, we will start painting the kit and putting the cockpit together. See you soon.